managing this narrative. So it was a lot to be angry about, and I think we were sort of putting our anger into this movie and really just not holding back. We were not holding back in making this at all, and I think that anger was returned to us in the initial response to the movie at Cannes. People were angry back at us. So it was a lot of anger, and I wonder are we now angrier?
I think we may be.
These are the sordid tales of how it all came crashing down.
Welcome back to Understanding Southland Tales. I said I would talk about the chaotic casting choices of Southland Tales, so here's a brief rundown of it. Looking at the cast list, there were a lot of SNL cast members here, which was very intentional. The script for Southland Tales left a lot of room for improv, so Richard Kelly intentionally picked actors who he thought would be good at improv. His other intention was to choose actors or actresses who had been typecasted, and he wanted them to branch out and take on different roles. The Rock doesn't quite play the basic action star in this movie that we've seen him play prior to this, and unfortunately that's what his career went back to after this. This is one of the few times I've actually seen him take a risk and give himself to a director, and I think the character benefited from it. The last time I can remember him doing such a thing was Pain and Gain from 2013, which is also Michael Bay's best film. In my opinion, he's the best wrestler turned actor, but he just chooses the same roles, and it's all stuff that the public seems to be getting tired of. But I honestly think Southland Tales scared him away from taking risks as an actor. He'd rather play it safe and collect his checks. Sean William Scott doesn't come close to playing anything American Pie-like. Instead, he plays two characters, and he actually does a great job at letting the audience tell them apart, despite them being the same person. And Sarah Michelle Gellar is an adult film star turned musician and many other things, and had to actually sing, which she thanks alcohol for helping her get through it. Sarah Michelle Gellar actually picked out the outfits that her character wears, and also picked out the hairstyles. It was a deliberate choice of hers to have the character have a different hairdo or outfit in every single scene. Justin Timberlake is a narrator/war veteran, who actually does get the chance to perform a song eventually, but the funny thing is that even though he narrates the movie, he claims to have no idea what this film is about. He shot all of his scenes in one day and went on with his life. To my knowledge, he wasn't even at the Cannes Film Festival when the film premiered, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's never seen the film. The common denominator among the cast is that they're all good at doing comedy and improv, and despite the chaotic casting choices, I think it all came together perfectly. Chapter 5 of Southland Tales is titled Memory Gospel, named after a Moby song. A song that sounds very powerful, despite not having any lyrics. I've seen comments from people saying that this song brings both a melancholy feel or an uplifting feel. The cast of Southland Tales actually walked the red carpet to this song at the Cannes Film Festival. But Chapter 5 of Southland Tales opens up with a different tone. I wasn't lying earlier when I said that US Ident literally watches people going to the bathroom. Starla has been on bathroom watch for 24 straight hours. Starla, who worships boxer Santeros, has downloaded the script The Power, which could possibly be where Dr. Kunstler got the script in the prior scene. She has now taken over the role of Dr. Muriel Fox, whose job it is to help Jericho Kane solve the eternal mystery. Zora calls in a fake disturbance to Ronald Tavener. Boxer seems excited to get called into some shit. Dream and Dion put on the performance of a lifetime by having a fake argument about Dream cheating on him. Dream says that she can't be a housewife because she loves to suck dick. I also love how they're doing this before Ronald and Boxer show up, so all of this is for absolutely no one, and causes more harm than good. When Ronald and Boxer pull up, another police officer, Bart Bookman, played by John Lovitz, passes by. Since Dion and Dream are so over the top, Bookman offers to help them. The way The Rock plays this part never fails to make me laugh.
Oh look, fellow officer of the law.
Howdy.
The police cruisers also have the phrase, Oderant dum mentuit, which translates to, let them hate so long as they fear, which is unfortunately an accurate mindset for police officers. Southland Tales turns into a bit of a found footage film for a second because Boxer is recording them arriving at the house. An interesting thing to point out is that the fog is actually created by a Trier title generator. It's a comment so small, but it makes the world feel so much more lived in. Dream is surprised that Bart Bookman is here and starts screaming a poem that she wrote at him. Bookman is actually a crooked police officer, unlike Ronald, and actually shoots Dream instead of pretending to shoot her. Then he shoots Dion too. The squibs go off after they've already been shot, which is absolutely hilarious. This scene in particular does a great job delivering the social commentary in a humorous way. Systemic racism is definitely a big issue and has been for a while, but just the way this scene is done is a great way of delivering the message in a very uncomfortable but funny way. The staged double murder caught on tape by an actor with political ties actually turned into a real double murder. Boxer develops a nervous tic here, where he kind of just taps his fingers together. Boxer and Ronald are kicked out, and Wave of Mutilation plays. Boxer looks at Ronald and mumbles something, and he actually says the line from the graphic novel, "I'm a pragmatic prevaricator," and I'll put the rest of the quote on the screen. And honestly, I'm still unsure what this means. I've heard people say that it pretty much boils down to him being an actor, but I'm up to hear people's thoughts. Boxer and Ronald flee in different directions to go off on their own stories, and Zora and Bing flee on their rollerblades that actually have training wheel tires on them. Boxer gets a call from Starla, and she asks if this is Jericho Kane, and she introduces herself as Dr. Muriel Fox. She confirms to him that a rift has been created in the Nevada desert. She says they're listening, and she can't say much more, and she gives him a phone number to call. Meanwhile, Baron von Westphalen is proud to show off his new Trier Saltair commercial that has 2 SUVs having sex. This is shown at Bobby Frost's home, and Baron von Westphalen is going on a weird pro-environment/anti-fossil fuel rant by saying we'll no longer burn the spirits of the dead. We'll look to the ocean for energy, and no longer harm the ozone layer. Boxer calls Von Smallhouse, which is the number that Starla actually gave him. He introduces himself as Jericho Kane. Von Smallhouse, who is actually Boxer Santera's agent, gives him instructions to go to Baja Cantina in Venice, and he'll send a car for him. Pilot is scrolling the headlines on usideath.org, and we see that there will be a neo-Marxist tribute to Dream and Dion. Deep Throat 2 are now on the search for Boxer, and Sydney tries to call Von Smallhouse, and she can't get a hold of him, therefore can't blackmail him with the footage of him and Krista. Krista tells Cindy and Terry to not let Boxer get hurt because he's not the person they think he is. Is she referring to Boxer being Jericho Kane? Is she referring to Boxer being a clone? Let's keep going to find out. Boxer is picked up at Baja Cantina. Nana Mae Frost sees the footage of Dream and Dion's death. The state of the world is shown through a couple screens, and it features protests, police killing innocent people, and amputated thumbs to rig elections. Ronald, Zora, and Bing are talking in the police car. Ronald is convinced that Dion and Dream were killed. Zora thinks they were just squibs. Zora slips and calls him Roland, so he becomes convinced that she's lying to him. It's very similar to the relationship between Boxer and Krista once Boxer starts to question things. Bing kinda just sees his way out. Zora injects Ronald with fluid karma, kicks him out of the car, and then we focus on Bing's uncomfortably long exit until Zora runs him over and kills him. Revelation 22. For it will never be night again, and they will not need lamplight or sunlight, because the Lord God will be shining on them. They will reign forever and ever. Roland Taverner wakes up in the dumpster. He now has a white light beaming from his hand, and he gets out of the dumpster and runs off. Walter Mung, the arms dealer from earlier, is reading a magazine with Baron von Westphalen's mug on the cover. We see that superpower prosthetics are now in development, further showing how soldiers are being experimented on. Roland approaches him and asks to use his phone. It seems to take him a second, but he recognizes Roland and injects him with fluid karma, so both Taverners have been injected and knocked out in a matter of minutes. Boxer is brought to Bobby Frost's home, and Pilot Abilene reads us another scripture just minutes after the last one. Revelations 12 and 13 tell the tale of a pregnant woman, a dragon, and 2 beasts. They are the puppets of the Antichrist. Madeline Frost, played by Mandy Moore, doesn't seem to believe that Boxer has amnesia. Bart Bookman delivers the tapes of the murders to Zora. Zora says that they're going to be paid a lot of money to destroy it. Bart Bookman asks Zora if she wants to fuck or watch a movie. And we have a smash cut to Krista Now's music video for Teen Horniness is Not a Crime. Madeline Frost is holding Krista's newest DVD, Cock Chuggers 2, Cock Chuggin'. And no, this is not a part of the extended material like the graphic novels or The Power, so I will not be breaking this down. The Frosts are suspicious that a neo-Marxist group has kidnapped and brainwashed Boxer. Krista Now arrives dressed in a trench coat, which is a subtle nod to Maxine Cooper's character in Kiss Me Deadly. Madeline Frost is clearly unimpressed, and Boxer sticks up for Krista. And Boxer says that Krista has produced her own pop album, developed a reality show, a clothing line, jewelry, perfume,
and not to mention a energy drink, which I tried, and her drink tastes really, really good. Can I see the cock chuggers?
No!
Also, I can die happy now that I've heard Holmes Osborne quote, "Teen horniness is not a crime."
Horniness is not a crime. Keep an open heart and an open mind.
Madeline is the one who asks if there is footage of them together. Krista doesn't even have to threaten it. Vaughn Smallhouse assumes that she's Deep Throat too, and Krista says that she's not in that movie. Bobby Frost doesn't want to negotiate, but everyone else is convinced that any footage of Boxer and Krista would sabotage the election. Madeline also confirms that she's pregnant with Boxer's child, which, if you pay attention to Pilot's ramblings, would suggest that she is technically one of the puppets for the Antichrist. Krista says that she was paid by Baron to bring Boxer home from the desert. The Frosts and the Westphalians start to fall apart because Madeline suggests that Baron has secretly been funding the neo-Marxists. Baron says it's a lie, and that the neo-Marxists know less about Karl Marx's teachings than that Chihuahua, which is also pretty accurate to our times because the parties seem so far beyond what the founders originally intended. Baron spills it that Madeline's baby is actually Brant's and not Boxer. Baron is summoned by his mother, who tells him that Mr. Takanashi has accepted his conditions, which we'll get to. As Blackout by Muse plays, Krista says bye to Boxer and says, "I love you, Jericho Kane." Starla calls Boxer and tells him to go to the base at the Santa Monica Pier. Dr. Kunstler is standing on the steps watching Boxer, holding a fluid karma ball, and she tells him, "We saw the shadows of the morning light, the shadows of the evening sun, until the shadows and light were one," which is a line from the Jane's Addiction song 3 Days, which is mentioned in the comics because we are currently among the final 3 days of our existence. Boxer leaves in a scene that is another direct homage to Kiss Me Deadly. Baron von Westphalen is on the phone making a discreet phone call, which he's also done a lot in the graphic novels. He's telling Simon Theory, played by Kevin Smith, to remove the body from Utopia 3. And so it begins. Simon is also using someone else's fingerprints to trigger this. USI Death flashes the name Martin Kefauver, who we'll meet shortly. He's also mentioned in The Power, and his name is an anagram for Freak Man Virtue. I tried reaching out to Richard Kelly himself on Twitter for some clarification on what this name means, but unfortunately he never replied to my tweet. Anyway, we also see a bunch of protests breaking out, and 90,000 people attended a megachurch reunion. I know this is satire and very exaggerated, but I remember being 7 years old after 9/11 and seeing how chaotic the news was. And this brings me back to that time, unfortunately. The thought of turning on the news and seeing that there's a high chance of a terrorist attack is terrifying, and seeing all this stuff on USI Death just brings me back to that. Pilot Abilene is being interviewed about his friendly fire incident, and it says that disgraced veteran Roland Taverner is missing. As we know, Baron had been conducting experiments on soldiers with fluid karma. In negotiations with Japan, Baron asks for Prime Minister's fingerprints in exchange for access to fluid karma, but Serpentine cuts off his entire hand and claims that there was a 6-inch margin of error. This scene reminds me, in the Cannes cut of the film, this is one of the opening scenes, which kind of makes me want to do a video on the differences between the two cuts of the film just to kind of figure out why things are placed in different spots. Martin Kefauver meets with Pilot, and it turns out that his father is Pilot's plastic surgeon, which Pilot says he'll need sometime soon. Pilot has been sneaking fluid karma from Utopia 3, and he's giving some to Martin. Fluid karma comes in different colors, and the colors determine how strong it is. Green, blue, yellow, orange, and red, which are the same colors as the terrorist threat levels. Pilot injects red, which is the strongest level. Pilot explains that it's like talking to God without even seeing him. You hear his voice, and you see his disciples. They appear like angels that can see through time. When Martin leaves with the fluid karma, Pilot passes out, and the drugs have triggered somewhat of a PTSD episode for him. If you recall in the graphic novels, Pilot and Taverner were playing All These Things That I've Done by the Killers when Pilot is struck with a grenade. So Pilot has a hallucination of him lip-syncing the song in a blood-soaked t-shirt. Nurses start dancing with him, and it's literally a whole music video for a couple minutes. This is hands down my favorite scene in the movie. It does a great job of portraying how it seems like soldiers are very high and mighty, but in reality, they just turn into broken people more times than not. And in the world of Southland Tales, since the draft is in full effect, just because a man has a soul doesn't mean they're capable of being a soldier. And the fact that Justin Timberlake was only on set for one day, and they ended up with a scene as great as this, is incredible. As this stream ends, Pilot pours a can of beer over his head, and Justin Timberlake does a phenomenal job of just showing the pain on his face. Without words, we can tell that he's just a damaged war veteran, and now that his fluid karma trip is coming to an end, he has to go back to feeling normal. Ronald Taverner wakes up on the street, which is shot very similarly to how Boxer woke up at the beginning of the film. And Pilot tells us that his face has haunted Ronald's dreams. And Memory Gospel ends here. Thank you all for continuing with me down the road less traveled. The next chapter will be the final chapter of the film and the final chapter in the Southland Tales saga, and I'm ecstatic to get to it. Chapter 4 and 5 were about 45 minutes each, but Chapter 6 is over an hour long, so it'll probably be a longer video. I also want to talk about the history of Southland Tales after its disastrous theatrical release, including how it found its cult following. And this is the way the video ends. Not with a whimper, but with a bang.
Tender is the night, lying by your side. Tender is the touch of someone that you love too much. Tender is the day the demons go away.